Selecting a BPO is a big decision. And the argument for outsourcing is pretty compelling. You can save 60, 70, 80% of your labor costs. You get really good staff. Philippines staff speak really good English. And I can't see really why any business in the English-speaking world is not doing it. But there's 3 ways you can go to do it. You can employ them directly, which has some issues with, particularly in Australia, has some issues with Fair Work Australia and their rulings. In other countries, there are lots of stories that it didn't work so well. Hiring them through an employer of record where someone else is the employer and they're responsible for engaging them and can help. And the most common method is through a business process outsourcing company, a BPO. So selecting a BPO is what I'm going to talk about today. And the reason it's important is once you are with a BPO and you've got a staff member there, if it works well, you're going to put another staff member there and then another staff member there, and you're going to train them there. And once you start training those staff, you have an investment beyond the dollars, and the lock-in with keeping those staff and the contractual obligations that prevent you taking those staff with you from the BPO become really important. So, if you stay the average length of a BPO customer, let's say it's 10 years, and you're paying a couple of $1,000s a year for your staff, sorry, that's wrong. A couple of $1,000s a month for your staff. If you add that up, it turns into a lot of money. So this is a big decision, and it's a difficult decision because a lot of you going onto the internet, searching for BPO, getting back thousands of results from lots of countries, maybe 40 or 50 countries. Yeah, there are reasons, pros and cons for them. But if you pass that and you've decided on the Philippines, the next thing you have to decide is which BPO are you going to go with? Now, I have never seen a BPO that has a website that is crappy. All of their websites look really good. All of them say much the same things. They all say, we have the best staff. We look after them the best. We look after you as the customer. We do lots of things in terms of perk. Now, increasingly, they're all saying, oh, and we have AI. They've tacked AI onto everything. But your BPO is going to be critical to your success in outsourcing. And in lots of cases, if you don't make it work, you'll go, outsourcing sucks, you'll walk away, and you'll never touch it again, which I think is a big pity and a big mistake. Because I know hundreds of companies that are outsourcing. I've worked in the industry as both a customer and an executive officer for 15 years here in the Philippines. I live in the Philippines. And now I've left that. I'm now what you would call retired, in inverted commas. So I don't run a BPO anymore, but I do help businesses select their BPO and place their staff. And I give a lot of advice to businesses. I do some consulting for businesses and some consulting for BPOs. So how do you go about selecting a BPO? Well, there's probably a much larger list than I've got time to cover today. The first thing you have to do is find a way to understand that the BPO is telling you the truth. So if you look at their website, as I said, they're all going to say the same things. There's about 12 critical criteria that I use to judge a BPO. And I'm not going to go through them in great depth here, but if you're interested, get in touch with me, and I've got documentation on it all that I can send out to you. So you want to know about their corporate structure. Are they really a BPO? Do they exist? Do they have an office? Do they have a corporation? Where is that corporation? Essentially, what you're looking to know is there something there you can sue if things go horribly wrong, or are they just going to disappear in a puff of smoke and all of a sudden you'll be ringing them up or trying to have meetings with them or sending them emails and there's no response? Will they just ghost you? So that's a really important thing to know, I think. I used to be a compliance guy, by the way, so I'm a bit legalistic in my approach. Sorry about that. Secondly, do they have experience in your industry? You want a BPO that's got some experience in what you do, because they have to attract staff who have some experience in what you do. So if you're going to a BPO that is specialized in engineering and you're the first creative graphic artist seat they're ever going to hire, it's not going to work very well. So you need to know a bit about who they've got. Now, some of the call centers here in the Philippines have 100,000 staff. Some of the BPOs have 10, 15, 20,000 staff. Do you want to be one BPO with 1 or 2 seats in a BPO with 20,000 seats? Or do you want to be in a smaller BPO where everyone knows your name? So you need to know how big they are and whether you are a desirable client for them, or whether you're just some sales guy who's had a bad month on commission and is telling you they want you. Then we need to start to look into the stuff that I think is obvious and matters. So first of all, in the Philippines, it's not a first world country. I know in Australia you also have blackouts and outages, and in America you have blackouts and outages, but they are not commonplace. Here in the Philippines, they call them brownouts, and they are much more common. So, does your BPO have redundancy in electricity? Because if the electricity goes off, the work stops. Secondly, do they have bandwidth? Because you're going to be working with your staff over the internet, if they don't have bandwidth and they don't have electricity, then you don't have anything. So you want to know, and you want evidence for this. They've got redundancy in electricity, and they've got redundancy in bandwidth, and they've got enough bandwidth to cope. And you want to know that they've got the IT skills to run their network in a way that is both protecting your privacy and facilitating your connectivity. Every time the computer won't boot, you're out of business again. So these are just some of the obvious ones. Going down the list a little bit further, we mentioned security. You want to know that they've got good data security for handling your data, but also good physical security. It's quite common here for a BPO to have an armed guard on the door, but you want to know they've got a process that works. You can go to any shopping center here and there'll be guards at the shopping center with shotguns, but you just walk through and you go through. So you want to know they've got a process that actually works, that's reliable for you in terms of security. If you don't have that, the staff are not going to feel comfortable. There's going to be problems. You also need to know, my doorbell is going off. You're also going to need to know how they deal with that. Do they have a documented management system? I'm a fan of ISO 9001 and 27001. There are other models as well, but you need to know that they know how to run this business. It's important. And there's no reason why you shouldn't ask those questions directly. And again, everyone puts on their website, we're ISO compliant. ISO compliant doesn't mean a damn. You want ISO certified. So you want to know the certificate number, and you want to be able to go and check that online, and you can see, when was it certified? Are they doing it? Is the number real? Does it apply to all of their locations? Or are they using one that's very narrow in its application? Next, you want to know, can they provide the staff? Everyone will tell you they've got the best staff in the Philippines, but in reality, they're all drawing from the same pool of staff. Many of them are university graduates, and I'm not a fan of hiring fresh graduates terribly much. I prefer to hire someone who has had a couple of years figuring out how the workplace works. But in some roles, fresh graduates are fine. And And is it an attractive destination for Filipinos to work? Now, if you're a graduate with 5 years experience and you're in an in-demand occupation and you're good, you will have your choice of jobs here. So you'll want to go to a BPO that has a reputation for being good to its staff and is seen as a desirable place to work. Otherwise, they'll take the job, but they'll leave for a few dollars more as soon as the opportunity arises. And it's difficult to assess that. But the way the BPO treats their staff, the way they provide their perks, the way they provide their staff management systems means their reputation will flow through the community very quickly. There is nothing faster in the universe than the Philippines grapevine. We call it the bamboo grapevine, and it is very useful and very damaging all at the same time, but it's very fast. So you want a BPO that can get you good staff and that has a process for doing that to provide good staff for you. And the third thing you need to make this all work for you, I'm sorry, that's not the third thing, it's one of many. The next thing you need to make that work for you is you need to have your processes and your capacity to bring them on board and train them and your relationship with them tuned up as well. So if any of this is of interest to you, reach out to me, drop me an email about selecting a BPO and I'll send you, I've got a whole bunch of documented information about it I can send you. I'm also happy to just have a talk to you one-on-one about what you're trying to achieve and whether you think it's a good idea. You can email me at wayne@outsourcingfit.com, or that address with any luck will be in the description for this video if I remember to put it there. And by the way, I really appreciate it if you would click the likes, hearts, whatever it is on the platform where you're watching this to let me know you're there. And I'm also really interested in what your experience has been and where this video is reaching. So if you've got a few seconds, just drop me a comment about where you are, even if you don't want to tell me anything else about you. It gives me a much better idea of how to tailor these videos. So if you've lasted this long, I hope you found it interesting and valuable, and I look forward to talking to you in person if you've got some interest in it. Bye now.